This is CBC Here and Now.
We are live from the rooms in St. John's tonight for what looks like it's going to be a fantastic outdoor music concert. But there's actually a lot more going on here, and it's also hitting a key action item in the province's own immigration strategy. We'll explain everything and have some live music to boot coming up. And Ashley, I'm sure hoping that weather holds off.
It does look like it will. We do have some showers in and around the area right now, but the story is the heat and humidity is going to return. I'll get into all the details.
Substance abuse affects people across the province, whether in urban or rural places.
Well, I can honestly say that it's not really one family in the Conception Bay North area that's not affected in some way, shape or form.
One addiction centre in Carbonear has been helping people for 10 years. That's coming up on Here and Now.
Welcome to Here and Now. I'm Carolyn Stokes. Well, a frightening alert near the town of Terra Nova last night as police warned of an active shooter in the area. We're now learning that threat extended well beyond that community. A 30-year-old suspect has been arrested. He was found more than 2 hours away. So let's have a look at that timeline. Around 7:40 last night, the RCMP received a report that a person has shot at another individual in a remote area of the Trailway just west of the town of Terra Nova. Police say the alleged shooter then fled. About 3 hours and 25 minutes later, at about 11:05, police issued a press release about an active shooter. Police give a description of what the suspect is driving and warned people to stay inside, lock their doors, and avoid windows. Police did not specify which direction the suspect was traveling. Now, police ultimately arrested the accused shooter roughly 40 minutes later in Summerford. That's more than 2 hours away from where the initial shots were fired. They issued another press release to say he's been caught and there were no injuries 20 minutes after that, just after midnight. Now, police say they had an emergency alert ready to further warn the public, but the suspect was apprehended just before that message was sent out. The RCMP did not do interviews today, but issued another media release. According to the RCMP, officers didn't know the suspect's motivation in the beginning, didn't know what direction he was traveling in, or whether more shots had been fired. They say spotty cell service in the area didn't help matters. Well, to St. John's now, where police have made an arrest connected to a shooting in the West End on Sunday. A 42-year-old man from St. John's is facing a number of firearm charges. The shooting happened late Sunday evening in the Harris Road area. RNC responded to a call that shots were fired and say that a man was found in the area with gunshot wounds. The injuries were not life-threatening. No other information is known at this time.
Well, we had a cool start to the week. Temperatures were really cool Monday morning. In fact, Labrador City saw something happen over the last couple of days that hasn't ever actually happened. Let's take a look. Daily low minimum for August 9th was 1.1 degrees. And then the next day reached a daily low max of 16.4. So we're certainly seeing some mild air move in. That hasn't ever happened in Newfoundland and Labrador. And in fact, we're going to say goodbye to the to the cool temperatures for a while. We've got a number of heat warnings in place across the province. I'll get into those in a little bit. But what we have on the go right now is some cloud cover across most of the province and some showers that are working their way through central, and they're heading east towards the Avalon. We'll likely see a few showers over the next couple of hours through, say, the eastern portion of the Avalon, and then, or rather the western portion of the Avalon, and eventually they'll push over the eastern, but it will stay unsettled for most of the night. Like I said, lots of heat and humidity on the way, but I'll get into all those details when I come back a little later.
Some Some COVID news now. For the first time in 17 months, the ferry between Newfoundland and St. Pierre-Miquelon is operating. And there are no new cases of COVID-19 to report today. There are, however, 5 active cases in the province, including 2 people in hospital. Now, while the province's mask mandate has been lifted, the City of St. John's is reminding residents to continue practicing social distancing in indoor public spaces. St. John's says city staff will continue wearing masks in its facilities, and it's encouraging the public to do the same. Now, while Atlantic Canada is not seeing a surge in the Delta variant, an infectious disease expert says it is the most prominent virus in North America right now. And as the number of visitors increases, so does the risk. That's just one of the reasons Dr. Lisa Barrett says it's a good idea to keep your mask handy.
There are a lot of factors that go into whether masks are essential at the moment, but certainly it would not be unreasonable to consider wearing them in large spaces with lots of travelers and lots of people still waiting to be vaccinated. There's a good chunk of people, including children, who do not get vaccinated at the moment because they can't, and we have to keep that in mind as we go forward, especially while we're still learning more about this virus and what the long-term side effects might be.
Well, Dr. Barrett also says there are a number of factors to consider when deciding whether or not you should wear your mask. She'll share that advice in about 35 minutes. Well, in other news, the amount of street drugs getting into the province has declined during the pandemic. That's according to the RCMP. But an addictions center in Conception Bay North says COVID has been an isolating and dangerous time for addicts, especially those in rural areas. Here now's Henrika Wilhelm reports.
For 10 years, this has been the place to go for people with substance use disorders in the Conception Bay North area, the U-Turn Drop-In Center in Carbonear. Its executive director says drug addiction is still very much a rural problem.
Outside of the overpass, I call it, outside of St. John's, substance use disorder is very active and affects a lot of people. I can honestly say that there's not really one family in the Conception Bay North area that's not affected in some way, shape or form of a family member or a loved one that's struggling.
Jeff Bourne says the center has made a difference in the past decade, but the pandemic has brought its own set of challenges. Social distancing has meant less access to in-person support.
I'm in recovery, so the worst place I can be left alone with is myself inside of my head, because in 5 or 10 minutes I can have myself in a very dark place. We're meant to be people, community people. We're meant to be involved with people around us. So I guess if we don't have nobody around us, we feel alone.
But Bourne says the province is making strides in providing mental health and addiction services that help people's recovery by offering better access to treatment or naloxone kits.
We're after coming a long way within the last 4 or 5 years, and we've still got a long way to go. It's great that some of the drugs are getting off the street. However, what is replacing it? Right? So if something is replacing it, well, people's going to use something they don't know what they're getting. So if they do get something that's got fentanyl into it, at least a naloxone kit will save your life.
He also sees positive change regarding stigma, something Bourne knows well. When U-Turn first wanted to open in a nearby community, it was turned down. He says there's still work to do. Henrika Wilhelm, CBC News, Carbonear.
The Labrador Innu Nation is suing the federal and provincial governments over the Muskrat Falls rate mitigation deal. It fears the agreement will erase the financial benefits the Innu Nation was promised by the provincial government. Innu leaders filed a statement of claim at Supreme Court yesterday. Here now's Mark Quinn has more.
Premier Andrew Furey was clearly pleased in late July when he joined Prime Minister Justin Trudeau to announce a $5.2 billion agreement in principle to prevent electricity rates from skyrocketing in Newfoundland.
What a huge day for Newfoundland and Labrador.
But not everyone was celebrating. Labrador's Innu Nation says it was blindsided by this financial restructuring.
They're making changes and we haven't been consulted. No one's told us anything. We've been seeking information for the last 6 months. None.
Now the Innu say they've been betrayed. They fear the mitigation deal means they'll lose money they were promised in an impact benefits agreement more than a decade ago. money they were to be paid in exchange for consent to build the Muskrat Falls project on their land. Innu leaders say they've tried to get details of the rate mitigation deal from the province, but have been stonewalled. They say they've been left with no option but to file a lawsuit to get the information they're seeking. The Innu say they understand the need for rate mitigation, but said in a news release yesterday there's no justification for making the Innu bear the burden of cost overruns that they had no control over. An Innu Nation lawyer told CBC the lawsuit aims to give the Innu a seat at the table before the bailout deal is finalized and to ensure the Innu get a fair share of Muskrat Falls benefits. The provincial government told CBC that it won't be commenting on the lawsuit because it's before the courts. Mark Quinn, CBC News, St. John's.
Well, we are live this evening at the Fortis Amphitheatre, just outside the rooms for a very special evening. It's a concert, but there's a lot of layers going on. And joining us now to talk more about it is Rhonda Tulk-Lane. She, of course, is the executive director with Music NL. So, Rhonda, what is going on here tonight?
So this is a partnership between Music NL, the Association for New Canadians, and the Rooms to display all the different global music that we have right here in our province. And it's happened every Wednesday in August, and next Wednesday is our last concert.
What's interesting about this, I think, is you saw an opportunity really to take on an action item that the government had identified in terms of its immigration strategy for retention. Just explain the thought, the thinking that went into this and some of the performers that are going to be joining us tonight.
Sure. So Music NL did indeed see an opportunity. We believe that music can be a pathway to immigration. And you're actually seeing it here tonight, and people just love to socialize and gather. So we put together a strategy where we talk to our newcomer musicians. We also talk to non-members in the community to see what barriers exist. And one of the barriers, we're getting them on stage. So this is indeed an action item to have them on stage for every Wednesday in August. So we're breaking down barriers while we create connections.
What kind of reaction have you gotten since you put the word out that you wanted to get more newcomer members involved with Music NL?
Through our partnership with the Association for New Canadians, we've actually seen an increase in our immigrant members at Music NL. We are now more reflective of the community and province that we serve, and as we continue to break down more barriers, I think we're going to see more musicians and newcomers become a part of our association, so it's been exciting.
Well, like, what kind of feedback have you gotten from some of the more established members? Because now I'm thinking like there's opportunities for synergy here too.
There is, as everyone that grew up here in Newfoundland and Labrador knows, the rich culture in the Newfoundland and Labrador traditional music. And I've got to go back to an example from the Once, who said when they're away and traveling the world and they see an artist from another country, they're seeing new things that they never would have thought of themselves. So the collisions that can happen with our traditional artists from Newfoundland and Labrador and our newcomers is out of this world. We don't even know what that could look like yet, but there's so much opportunity.
Well, Rhonda, we're sure going to be enjoying the show here tonight. Anybody else that wants to come down, maybe not tonight, but is this going to happen again?
Yes, so next Wednesday, it'll be our last Wednesday at 7 p.m. And we have another 3 great, amazing newcomers performing. And we also have the Global Eats food truck going to be here. So you can get a snack, sit at the grass, and listen to beautiful music.
Fantastic. Rhonda, thanks so much for this.
Thank you, Christy.
Rhonda Tulk-Lane, of course, and the music's going to get started here in just a moment, but you know, it's really interesting when you actually zone in on the strategy and the data that we've seen from numerous reports about how the province can improve its own immigration strategy. One such one recently came just a couple of months ago from the Harris Centre. Earlier today, I called Mike Clare, who was one of the authors of that report, and it started looking into some of the strategies about how to improve social pathways to get people integrated here in Newfoundland and Labrador. And music was one of the key things that he identified as a very effective strategy to do that. Here's some more of what he said.
So the way to integrate immigrants and the way that local people feel comfortable meeting immigrants is through recreation, sports leagues, hockey, baseball, soccer, whatever, through the arts. The arts is a really great way of getting a bunch of people together to enjoy a thing in common. And so music is a good way to bring people, to lower their defenses, to enjoy something and get to know each other, etc. And so you could have our own performers performing to new immigrants, which is a great way for them to learn about us. And what's happening tonight at the Rooms is that people from other cultures are performing their music, and we get to listen to them and find out something about them. What has been proven in Quebec, the UK, etc., the places that most oppose immigration are the people who are least exposed to immigrants. And so the more that we can connect newcomers with locals, the more they'll understand each other, and the more likely that a society will be welcoming to newcomers. And music is a fantastic way of doing this.
And imagine all you got to do is show up and enjoy some music. A little bit later in this show, we're going to actually introduce you to one of the performers here. He's got a fantastic story. He's going to be playing some music for us. You're not going to want to miss it. Stay tuned.
To be able to just work in a treehouse where, you know, you've got the brook that's just the little babbling brook on the side.
Well, she calls it a treehouse, but some might call it the pandemic shed of your dreams. Working from home has this Norris Point family branching out. That story's just ahead after Ashley's weather. Time now for a look at the weather forecast. And Ashley, pretty nice gig for you out there tonight, out there with Chrissy outside the rooms listening to some music. It's looking a little bit gray, but still really warm, right?
Yeah, it's fairly nice out. I mean, when the sun was peeking out earlier today, it was obviously much nicer, but still a fairly nice evening out here at the rooms. If we take a look at the daytime highs today, though, beautiful. 24 degrees here in St. John's. You can see a couple of areas through Gander, even up across Twillingate and St. Anthony, seeing those highs in the teens today. But take a look at what happens as you head towards the west coast. 27 degrees was the daytime high in Corner Brook today. Now, I showed you a little bit earlier that we have a few showers on the go through Central. That's thanks to that area of low pressure there, and also that cold front. That's why we saw some of those cooler temperatures and see that northerly flow up there along the north shore, northeast coast rather. That's where we're seeing those cooler temperatures, and right now down to 13 degrees in Twillingate, 15 in Bonavista, and 17 degrees in Terra Nova. So that cold front, both of the cold fronts and that area of low pressure are going to track through tonight. But you'll notice that humidity, 26 degrees it's feeling, or 26 rather, is what it's feeling like here in St. John's, and more like 32 with that humidex in Corner Brook. And that really is going to be the story. I talked about this the last couple of days, but those heat warnings are now in effect for the interior Humber Valley, including Grand Falls, Windsor, and then even up across Labrador, Hopedale through to Cartwright, including Happy Valley, Goose Bay under those heat warnings. We're going to see temperatures over the next few days really building, 28 to 32 degrees, humidex values even higher, feeling more like 36 to 40 as our humidex values. So we'll really start to see that heat build. You start to get into those oranges and those reds as we get into Friday. But Saturday is really when we're going to see that heat. So we'll likely see those heat warnings expanded through the northeast for the island into Saturday, and then into Sunday we're going to continue to see those warm temperatures, but things will start to cool down for Labrador. And with that, we are going to see those humidex values. So this is the humidity forecast. You'll note on Saturday, that's when we'll likely see those warnings ended for Labrador. And that's thanks to a cold front, and that will eventually sweep through Sunday and cool things off rather, and clear some of that humidity out. So by Monday, most of us will be feeling much more comfortable than the weekend. So as far as tonight goes, that system will continue to track through, and that's going to potentially spark some showers. We'll likely see some showers here in the Avalon as the overnight rolls around, and that's really the story across most of the island, including Labrador. A few lightning strikes in and around Lab City, but that will eventually clear, or the risk will end tonight, but the showers will continue for most of us even into Thursday morning. And temperatures tonight, another mild night, anywhere from the lowest temperature 10 degrees in St. Anthony and the warmest temperature in Lab City at 18. But winds will be generally light, maybe winds out of the south for Labrador West, Lab West for about 20 to 40 kilometers per hour, but overall nothing too much. And then as we head through the day tomorrow, it'll start unsettled, it looks like, but by the time we get to the afternoon, we should see some clearing skies, but that's when that moisture starts to move in. So all along southern areas of the island, you're looking at the fog and drizzle continuing for you for most of the day, but otherwise a mix of sun and cloud will be the story, and then showers will move back in again tomorrow night for Lab West, and eventually those showers will work their way towards the island as we get into Friday morning. Temperatures tomorrow, there you go, warming up quite nicely. 29 degrees in Corner Brook, 25 in Gander, and cooler temperatures at this point for the Avalon. Should only reach a high near 18 degrees, but again, that humidity, it's going to feel more like the mid to high 20s through the day, so it'll certainly be very sticky. And then across Labrador, there you go, 28 degrees for Happy Valley, Goose Bay, same thing for Cartwright, and your humidex values will be closer to the mid 30s, so hence that heat warning. Winds tomorrow, not overly impressive. Southeasterlies about 20 to 30 kilometers per hour for the island, and then up across Labrador, you're looking at a little bit stronger winds, but again, out of the south, about 30 to 50 kilometers per hour. So we'll get into the long range forecast. We'll talk about numbers, and unfortunately, it stays a little bit unsettled. We'll get into those details when I come back.
Oh, thanks, Ashley. A Norris Point family of 6 found themselves stuck at home during the pandemic and running out of space. So they decided to branch out into their backyard. And as Here Now's Colleen Connors reports, working from home has taken on a whole new meaning.
At first glance, this looks like most backyards. But tucked in the corner is this 15-foot, 2-story structure. It all started last summer, when the family, parents with 4 boys, had to tackle working from home.
And it started off as a kind of a small project. We just used extra wood that we had around and a fun way to keep them occupied. And then we realized that, this is going to go on longer than we thought, and we need to adjust and find ways to work and live within our space altogether. So we decided, let's make this a bigger project and build something a little bit bigger that we could all use for a whole bunch of different purposes.
Inside is an office space with heat, electricity, even Wi-Fi. It's a living room, a playroom, a sanctuary. And it took a lot of work. Cedric and Penny's dad, a retired electrician, designed and built this over the past year.
It was a bit unexpected, and we almost feel we went over the top. We lost control, but it's been very useful for both the parents and the kids and the friends. So I think it's a good addition to the little piece of land we have.
Mom and Dad may use it the most, but it's still a typical treehouse. Cars, trucks, teddy bears, a table and chairs takes over the whole top floor.
The upstairs. Why? Well, first of all, our parents work in the downstairs, so it's no fun being down there. We can barely ever go down there. And up here, we can go up here whenever. And there's more toys.
And even a few sleepovers with some envious friends. But for Mom, the best part is the connection to nature. Sure, there's still those Zoom calls, but there are squirrels in the background.
To be able to just work in a treehouse where, you've got the brook that's just that little babbling brook on the side, and you look out the windows and you're just immersed kind of in nature. And it's just, I think that's helped a lot of people in different ways. But for us, I think it's been really, a really cool experience.
Soon, in the fall, Penny and Cedric will return to their offices, and the boys will go back to the classroom. But the treehouse will continue to grow with their family.
And we know there'll be many stages, Soon our kids will be teenagers, sometimes you need your own space. And I think that's a great thing about it, it's just it's good for everybody.
For now, it's definitely this family's favorite spot to be. Colleen Connors, CBC News, Norris Point.
Well, coming up, we are back here live at the Fortis Amphitheater and Courtyard just outside the rooms. And you are about to meet a very interesting person, hear an incredible story, and hear some music that hardly anybody around here has ever heard. It's going to be pretty cool. Stay with us.
The Rooms in St. John's is hosting a public event tonight designed to showcase the province's diversity of talent. But as you heard from Chrissy Holmes earlier, there's a positive side effect to this series. It's also working to create a sense of community. So Chrissy is standing by live. So Chrissy, it sounds like you found some interesting performers and stories down there tonight.
Carolyn, how much time do we have, really? You know, there really is just so much here. And I want to introduce you to our guest here with some of the key things I learned about him by Googling earlier today. So, Spanish professor, very high reviews, a student favorite. He's a YouTuber. He cooks a mean jam. He's a musician. He's founder of the St. John's Gay Men's Chorus. He recently did K-pop dance on TikTok, like really well. And also, Yohei Sakai, I hear you do a mean, gray, foggy day. Welcome.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me today.
You know, even between teaching people how to speak Spanish here and bringing people into the St. John's Gay Men's Chorus, there's a theme that you have. Like, you came to the community and it's like you help people find their voice.
Mm-hmm.
Why was it important for you to do all that work?
I think in a way that I'm trying to give the voice that I didn't have when I was younger. So I knew that I was gay when I was 17, and until 23, that 6 years I spent completely in closet. And it feels like empty time. I learned a lot in university, but I just feel like it was empty. Then when I came to Canada for the first time, I was in Toronto, and in a gay bar, I saw this newly married gay couple. And I still remember so vividly that moment. They looked so happy, and I thought, oh my God, I also have that option. Because we didn't have that option. We don't have that option still. And when we don't have that option, it's outside of our reality. So I never thought about it. So it feels like I'm trying to contribute to my community so that people don't have to go through what I had to go through.
What has that meant to other people, and specifically like the Gay Men's Chorus, for example, to give people a space to find their voice? Like, what have you heard from them?
For example, we have a few transgender members in our choir, and for some of them, being able to join our choir without fear of the judgment is an affirming place. They can be there, and we also accept people without any musical background, because I don't want to put more barriers. Like, everyone can learn to sing, and in a way that putting audition is putting even more barriers. So I'm hoping that this choir becomes a place where people can find space and the voice.
It's pretty neat, right? It's a pretty neat thing to do and to create that opportunity for other people. You've got this. Is this a ukulele? Like, I want to get this right. This is.
Yeah, this is a baritone uke.
Okay, so you have a pretty incredible piece that you're going to perform for us, and it's got a pretty cool story. Just tell us a little bit about this song.
Sure. I'm going to sing Shimabara region's lullaby. So this is a lullaby, and Shimabara is actually where I was born, and it's sung in our dialect. So I think most of the mainlander Japanese people won't understand what I'm saying. But interesting thing is that there's a part, it says, go to sleep, don't cry, go to sleep, because Kyusuke will come and get you. This Kyusuke was a man who was famous because he was buying girls from poor family, and he sent these girls to the continent. So even though it's a lullaby, there's this a little bit dark side of our society, the sad part of our society, and I find it really interesting that not only in Japan but in many cultures, in lullabies we hear that, like, hardship of life. It's not only yay, happy, go to sleep. No.
Rockabye baby, little baby sleepy. No, but so this is really interesting too. Like, you see that thread through many cultures.
Yeah.
Kind of dark lullabies.
Exactly. Yeah.
That is really interesting. And what is it called? What is this song called?
Shimabara no komori uta. Shimabara region's lullaby.
Yohei Sakai, what a pleasure. I can't wait to hear it. I'm going to step back live from the rooms. Take it away.
Odomya Shimabara no otomi らの梨の木育ちよなんの梨やらなんの梨やら色気なしばよ紹介なはよねろなかんでおろろんばいおのいけきゅうすけどんのつれんこらるばい帰りにゃよっちゃくれんか帰りにゃよっちゃくれんかあばらやちゃけんどといもめしゃわんめしといもめしゃわんめしこがねめしばよ紹介な嫁ごんべなたがくれたつばつけたならあったかろうおきのしらぬいおきのしらぬい消えてはもゆるバテレン祭りのバテレン祭りの笛や太鼓も鳴りやんだはよねろなかんでおろろんばいはよねろなかんでおろろんばい
with the provincial mask mandate lifted, people have a decision to make whether or not to wear a mask when out in public spaces. Public health officials still strongly recommend mask wearing, and in hospitals, long-term care homes, and courthouses, they still require you to cover up. But many businesses are giving customers a choice. So how should you navigate this new world we're in? Joining us now is Dr. Lisa Barrett. She's an infectious disease researcher and clinician at Halifax's Dalhousie University, originally from Old Perlican. Thanks so much for being here.
Thanks for having me.
Well, first off, I should point out that Nova Scotia, where you are, is now the only Atlantic province that still has a mask mandate in place. So with that in mind, do you think is now the right time to ease restrictions?
Well, I think we're all approaching this with a very similar but not exactly the same approach. The things as a doctor and as an infectious disease doctor that I think about when I'm thinking about reducing restrictions, including masks, are how much virus is around, how easy is it to spread, and how likely is it that people can be infected. And so a couple of things there. Delta variant, although not at high levels in any of the Atlantic provinces, it is the most dominant virus right now in North America, and therefore, because it transmits more easily, we should be very aware of it. Low levels of virus at the moment, so the risk on any one given day right now in Atlantic is probably lower, but also more movement and travel from places with more infections, so that's something to be aware of. Last part, of course, is thinking about how likely it is if someone runs into a virus from another person that they are to get it, and that depends very much on the level of vaccination. And so right now, still getting up to the ideal numbers of people vaccinated. The long and the short of that answer is there are a lot of factors that go into whether masks are essential at the moment, but certainly it would not be unreasonable to consider wearing them in large spaces with lots of travelers and lots of people still waiting to be vaccinated. There's a good chunk of people, including children, who do not get vaccinated at the moment because they can't, and we have to keep that in mind as we go forward, especially while we're still learning more about this virus and what the long-term side effects might be.
And as I mentioned, people in this province, they're faced with a choice now whether or not to wear a mask in public spaces. They don't have to anymore. But, if you're going to the grocery store, for example, and you're trying to decide whether or not you should wear a mask, what sorts of things should you consider?
Absolutely. So number one, hooray that we've come so far with science and with keeping virus low in this part of the country, that we have a choice. Not a lot of people have that choice at this stage. And so number one, great that we have a choice. Masks, well, the things to think about are how much virus is in your community that you know of. And of course, that does rely a little bit on us having enough testing to know how many cases there are around. Number two, how many people have vaccines around us? And number three, the mask is to protect people around us more so than us, although there is some protection to the person wearing the mask. And so that depends how vulnerable the people around you are and how vulnerable you might be. So those are the things I think of when I'm trying to consider if I wear a mask.
And in this province, 64% of eligible people over the age of 12, are fully vaccinated. But as you mentioned, fully vaccinated people can still carry and transmit the virus to people like non-vaccinated children. And should that play into our decision making?
Yeah, so I happen to be part of the group of folks who think that infections are still important, even if they don't put you into a hospital or result in death. I still think there's still a bit we're learning about this virus. In fact, some people without severe disease may get some long-term side effects, and children can still get sick, although there is some evidence that they transmit less. They are still capable of getting infected and of getting quite sick. In the US, they're seeing lots more hospitalizations, higher numbers because they have a lot of infections, but the percentage of children who end up in hospital is still low, but present. And you know what? If a mask is cheap and easy to wear for most folks, then I think right now it's a reasonable strategy for adults to think about wearing masks if cases go up in order to keep those kids safer while we're learning more and waiting for them to have the opportunity that we have to get vaccinated. So it's not an easy one answer question. It does depend on how much virus is in the community, but the easiest way to protect kids right now who can't get vaccinated is to keep virus low, and with increased movement and gatherings, certainly the easy way to include less cases is to easily wear masks when we're all around each other in big groups. If you're very comfortable, if you have a really significant discomfort with masks, maybe that's okay not to, but feel good about wearing them if you want, and also be kind to people if they decide not to, or if they decide to wear a mask.
Yeah, absolutely. Some good advice there for sure. Dr. Lisa Barrett, really appreciate your time. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Nurses in Alberta are holding demonstrations today at several sites across the province to send a message to the provincial government. It's part of the nursing union's day of action in protest of the province's handling of the COVID-19 pandemic and proposed wage cuts. Alberta is asking nurses for a 3% pay cut as part of ongoing labor negotiations. Union leaders say they also oppose the government's plan to largely get rid of COVID-19 contact tracing and isolation requirements starting next week. Well, a Nova Scotia family was left waiting for an ambulance at the end of their driveway for hours, even though they live just a few minutes from the hospital. Brett Ruskin has more on what happened and the explanation for the delays.
This is the story of the O'Brien family, specifically Ross O'Brien, an 86-year-old man who lives just about 5 kilometers from here, from the Dartmouth General Hospital. And it was on Monday that he tripped and fell just outside his home and broke his hip. His wife called 911, asked for an ambulance, and the dispatchers said that an ambulance would be 3 hours away, 175 kilometers away in another part of the province. So they waited in the driveway, trying to keep Ross comfortable in the excruciating pain that is a broken hip. They waited 3 hours, still no ambulance. His wife called again, was told that it would be an additional 2 hours before an ambulance arrived. Now, then she called police to try to get some help that way. Also by that time, another family member who happens to be a nurse arrived. The police cruiser arrived on scene. The nurse deemed it safe to move Ross O'Brien to the cruiser, and the police officers brought him here to hospital. As for why this happened, why there was this delay, we heard from health officials who didn't address this case specifically, but they did say that there is a significant increase in demand for emergency services in the last little while, which is creating increased waits throughout all facets of the healthcare system, including paramedics and ambulances. And so, again, the O'Brien family speaking out about this situation in the hopes that it doesn't happen to anyone else. Brett Ruskin, CBC News, Halifax.
Well, you've probably seen those old photographs of outport homes being floated from one community to another. Well, they have another way of uprooting houses in Winnipeg, though it's not always a success story. One moving company is in hot water after a recent move gone bad. CBC's Sean Kavanagh has the details.
As far as a miscalculation about whether something could fit down a street, this was a big one. Winnipeg police say they arrived on Roblin Boulevard around 7 a.m. Saturday morning to facilitate the move, but instead found more than a dozen trees cut up. They called the city's forestry branch, and some tough decisions had to be made. The house was stuck, and more trees would have to be cut down.
There was no going back. It couldn't turn around, couldn't reverse, couldn't change their shift the load or any of that. Staff actually had to make a call, tree by tree, one by one, as the truck proceeded to determine whether a tree could be saved or preserved and the truck could get around it. So it was literally a one tree by one tree decision.
The city says 23 trees were ultimately lost because of the move. Officers did a brief investigation and promptly charged the driver with mischief over $5,000. The incident blew up on social media, and the area councillor was hearing the buzz. Klein wants the city to go after the movers with a legal chainsaw.
The city should be actively pursuing a civil lawsuit today. Let's get working on this right now to ensure that we receive damages.
Dorothy Doby lives a few blocks from where the trees were lost. Doby is a former president of Trees Winnipeg.
Trees are part of the infrastructure. They're just as important and much more difficult to replace than bridges and roads and sidewalks.
Cola Building Movers declined comment. The company was granted a permit to move the home by the province's motor carrier branch. But the city's forester says, unlike previous applications, no one from the provincial government consulted them on the move. The city's investigating. Sean Kavanagh, CBC News, Winnipeg.
Time now for a look at the long range. And Ashley, you've been talking a lot about the meteor shower, the ongoing meteor shower that people have been enjoying. So those who are looking up to the skies this evening, what can they expect to see?
Well, I guess it really obviously depends on where you are across the province, but yes, the meteor shower will peak tonight. Let's take a look at that. You can see that we'll likely, you're going to have to look in that northwest to northeast sky, so mainly in the north, and you're going to see meteors about 60 to 100 meteors per hour. Now, the best chance of seeing this at this point looks like it'll be for coastal Labrador, and that will be for tonight and even tomorrow. That looks like we'll see the best. Now, that's not to say that we're not going to see some partly cloudy skies at some point in the overnight for parts of the island, but it isn't going to be a consistent clear sky. So hopefully you'll get the chance to see it, but hopefully these temperatures will be the trade-off over the next couple of days. It is going to be unsettled as we get into the weekend. It looks like mainly cloudy skies by the time we get to Friday, maybe a few peaks of sun for the west coast as well as the northern peninsula, and most of Labrador. However, central Labrador will stay cloudy at this point, but your temperatures will be warm. Again, those heat warnings in place. Corner Brook, Grand Falls, Windsor, Gander, all seeing those temperatures in the mid to high 20s. Note the temperature a little cooler in St. John's at this point, and those wind barbs you can see, they're onshore there a little bit, so keeping those temperatures a little bit cooler, but the humidity will be there. You're looking at humidex values between 30 to as much as 40 as we get through the day on Friday. As we get into Saturday, we're looking at that the warm temperatures again, flirting with the 30-degree mark through parts of central, and staying unsettled. Saturday looks beautiful though for the west coast. You should see some sunshine, 29 degrees for you, and then a little bit of sunshine as well for coastal areas of Labrador, keeping those skies gray at this point for St. John's. And looks like the weekend will unfortunately stay a little bit cloudy as well. Now, temperatures may fluctuate a little bit, but at this point they're looking like they should stay in the low 20s. However, humid through the afternoon. And then as you head towards central Newfoundland, that's where you're really going to see that heat. Sunday looks absolutely beautiful, but hot, 29 degrees, plenty of sunshine. And then for Monday, that's when we see the humidity go away and some cooler temperatures. So much nicer weather through the day on Monday. Same thing for western Newfoundland, however, keeping your temperatures in and around 22 degrees. Overnight lows will start to dip a little bit as well. 9-10 degrees it looks like for most of Newfoundland as we get through Monday night. For eastern Labrador, you're looking at the chance of showers, generally unsettled right through Monday, and then eventually it'll clear out for Lab West. You're looking at a high near 20 degrees on Monday. I had to share this photo. Look at this. Grace enjoying the nice summer breeze at Tug Pond. Stuart Reed shared that great shot with us. If you have any weather photos, send them to nlphotos@cbc.ca.
I love it. I always love the shots of the animals out enjoying the weather. Thank you so much, Stuart, for sending that in. And thank you, Ashley. I hope you get to enjoy some of the music down there outside the rooms tonight. That show is getting underway at 7 o'clock, I think. So it looks like
there's lots of people out there.
Yeah, nice weather for it tonight. So hopefully you'll get to enjoy some, and some other folks will get to enjoy some music as well. So that's it for us tonight. Thanks everyone for joining us. Ashley, we'll see you tomorrow. Good night.
Good night.